Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 3. I am your host, Joe Baress, along with my co-host, Joby, Fawcett. Joby, how we doing?
Joe, we're doing quite well, and let me start off by saying how lucky the two of us were in week one of the high school football season. Oftentimes we roll the dice on these selections for the best games on the schedule.
Yeah.
We hope that those are the games that both you and I are attending.
Right.
And
No.
boy, did we hit. Maybe you should play the Powerball tonight, Joe.
We did hit the jackpot, right?
We really had a nice opening week with two really competitive games between some really talented football teams. So it was a heck of a way to start the 2025 season for sure.
Absolutely. It was a busy weekend. And one of the athletes who had a great performance from this weekend was Isaac Ryon, and he is our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, and he joins us now. Isaac, how we doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. Just to tell everyone what Isaac did in case you missed it, Isaac had 166 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on 14 carries and 2 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown to lead Lackawanna Trail to a 35-21 victory over Tunkhannock in a non-conference game Friday night. Let's not forget that he also had an interception. So, Isaac, obviously we talked yesterday, but so obviously you kind of said Tunkhannock was a little surprising, but what did you think of your team's performance against Tunkhannock?
Well, it's week one. You're gonna be a little sloppy, but as the game goes on, you just keep getting better and better. But I do think we started off strong. The first possession we scored in like 3 or 4 plays, which is great. The line block good, and then just the calls the coaches made, it all worked out.
Isaac, there's a lot of high expectations surrounding this football team this year based upon the talent that you have coming back from a team last year that was a District 2 Class 1A champion. But you don't win football games on expectation and on paper. So kind of tell me about the mentality that this group has had since that loss to Muncie in the state playoffs last year.
Yeah, that was a tough loss. It's gonna be hard to forget about that, but it motivated us this off season. We were working hard, not let that happen again, and just come out every game like the seniors. It's your last time playing, so you might as well go 110%.
Absolutely, Isaac. This being your senior year, Lackawanna Trail's been a great program for a while now. What's the best part about playing football at Lackawanna Trail, and what makes this group of seniors so special?
Well, this group of seniors, we've been playing together since like Pee Wee ball all the way up through. And really just the community, the bond that the community has with trail football. It's really special around trail. It's like I don't think any other place really has it like us, so we're really lucky.
So for our listeners out there, Isaac, who may not remember, you as a freshman knocked through the kick that will be remembered forever in Lackawanna Trail football lore in lifting the team to a District 2 Class 1A upset championship victory over heavily favored Old Forge, by the way. And that kind of catapulted you to the limelight a little bit for this program. But kind of tell me what that was like for you as a freshman to be able to experience that level of play and also have to deal with that kind of pressure and come through when your team needed you to.
Yeah, that year I played with a lot of great kids that played all the way up through, did really special things for trail. But in the moment, you don't even realize that it's such a key moment. You just kind of do what you've been doing all game and do what your coaches tell you to, and just trust yourself.
Yeah, Joby, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually forgot that. I forgot about that, how big that was. So getting a little bit to that, obviously you were a freshman at that time. How has your role with this team kind of evolved? And now obviously you're a senior leader.
Yeah. Freshman year, I played corner. Then also I was behind Luke Scumble at running back, freshman and sophomore year, which he taught me a lot of stuff. Evan Litwin and Max Kimmel, they taught me a lot at corner. So I kind of just took their place in teaching the younger classmen, the role and like the mentality of being a Lion.
Well, when you say that, Isaac, being a Lion, you have some family ties to this program, obviously, but you've been around it for so long. And anytime you walk through the halls at that school, it's such a small community, such a small school district, and you see all those championship plaques up there. What kind of influence is that for you as a young football player when you see all those championship team photos in that trophy case?
It really just motivates you. You want to be remembered there too. So yeah, just play your best and hopefully get one of those plaques. So when you're older, you're still walking through the hallways remembering it.
Absolutely. Isaac, how did you get started playing football?
It was really the recess football in elementary school. My friends wanted me to play. They played before me. I started in 4th grade, but yeah, honestly, I didn't really like it back in Pee Wee. But then I took a year off, and I didn't realize how much I'd miss it. So ever since then, I've been playing.
Now, Isaac, I may be wrong on this, but I'm generally not wrong. I know your mom was a great tennis player, correct?
Yeah,
She was probably one of the best tennis players we've ever had here, and she's got that competitive spirit. Your sister was an incredible player of field hockey there at Lackawanna Trail, and she had that kind of competitiveness. What's it like in your family? You're all athletes, you're all competitive, and you all kind of play with that same similar fire.
yeah. It was. I was really fortunate growing up around my mom and dad, just pushing me because they've been through it too. And then growing up with Lila and Lena, my 2 sisters, we've just all been really competitive and pushed each other to our limits. So I think that made each other better.
Isaac, you ever try picking up a field hockey stick?
Yeah, in the backyard sometimes.
How are you compared to your sisters? Probably not great.
Compared to them, not very good, but I like to think that I'm pretty good at it.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Isaac, speaking of, you are a well-rounded athlete as well. I cover wrestling, and you've been, part of, again, Lackawanna Trail has had a very good wrestling tradition. You had a really nice season last year, making the all-region team, finishing 6th in the region, getting a pin against Mason Avery of Honesdale. What talk about last season and how you were able to kind of put together a great season for yourself?
Yeah, I thought we had a really, really special team last year. We were young though, so we didn't have a lot of experience. But like the district duels, the team duels, we came out, wrestled hard. We beat Valley View.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, we just worked hard in the room all the time. The coaches were great.
Isaac, how much did that help you as a football player? I hear it all the time. I'm not into the wrestling other than watching the professionals who are more gymnasts now than they are wrestlers. But
yeah,
I hear it all the time that being in the room and wrestling, it's so beneficial to you as a football player. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, I agree. Really, with your footwork, I think that helps a lot. Wrestling does a lot with footwork, and just overall, like your angles, being able to stay low while you play football, and just like your core strength, that helps a lot. Yeah, and balance also.
Absolutely. This is going to be the last thing for me. Joby, you're going to love this probably just as much as I did when I heard, but Isaac is a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Oh, dude. Right.
As I told Isaac, I'm a Packer fan. You are a Rams fan. So I'm just curious, Isaac, how did you become a Seahawks fan?
My cousins live in Seattle, so they'd come in once a year. And I don't know, we'd always just watch the Seahawks games at my grandma's house ever since I was young.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I kind of just grew up watching them.
That
He
actually
also-
makes sense.
Yeah. And listen, he grew up watching them lose a lot of times to the Rams. That's
Well,
right.
I don't know about that.
What do you mean?
He's a young guy.
I have a question for you here too. So you're a running back and you wear number 10. Now, do you have some quarterbacking in your background, or what inspires you to wear number 10?
honestly, I don't really know why I picked number 10.
That's the kind of investigative reporter I am, Isaac.
My uncle wore number 10 when he was in high school.
Okay.
But I really didn't know that till like a year after I did pick it. So
Oh,
there
that's
really
great.
isn't any background behind it. It was just pretty much the only jersey that I could pick when I was a freshman.
Yep.
All right. Well, you stuck with it. Now, do you have a favorite player?
Oh, Tom Brady.
Holy cow, Isaac, you're
I really, yeah.
you and I are not going to be friends much longer. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, this is the second time you've made Joby. You now have an enemy who's the athlete of the week.
Well, he's not. I'm not going to use such a strong word as enemy, but he's tearing a piece of my heart out with everything he's saying here.
I like prime, like Marshawn Lynch. He was good too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Beastquake. There we go.
Yeah,
absolutely. I love it.
So listen. I want to ask a question because this is an important thing for you. On a little bit about the game that you're playing in week 1 against Tunkhannock. Now, people may not realize this, but one, Tunkhannock is a building program, but also the two school districts do neighbor each other. So there is some familiarity there. And as a senior, it ended up being a tight game at one point. And how do you that's something you guys haven't been involved in too much during the course of the last 3 years. So what did you do as a leader with this group, especially at halftime? Football's a hard sport. Sometimes things don't go your way. You face some adversity. How did you get yourselves through that?
Well, yeah, we've been doing hard conditioning ourselves. So it's really like the second half is our half type of mentality. Like we strive when teams are getting tired. So we just push through the toughness and just try to play the same throughout all 4 quarters and never really let down.
Absolutely. I guess, Isaac, I'm going to ask you one more thing. You're going to play Western Wayne on Friday. Obviously, it's early in the week, but what's the preparation been like? What have you been able to look at about Western Wayne so far?
Yeah, well, today we had practice. We had it as like today we're trying to win the first quarter today at practice. So we worked hard. We ran, we lifted, watched our film. And yeah, tomorrow we'll be getting ready to try to stop their offense and look at what they do.
Listen, I don't want to be the guy who brings up some bad memories, Isaac, but I would like to think that this game, you've got some motivation for this week, I think, right?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely have a chip on our shoulder.
I mean, that 28-7, I was at that game last year, and things, boy, it avalanched there about midway through the third quarter. So are you keeping that in the back of your mind, but still maintaining your focus on what you have to do as football players?
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you lose, that was our 1 out of 2 losses last year, and our only loss in the regular season, which really, really sucked. But it just motivated us more for this year, try to make us play better.
Absolutely. No, go ahead, Joby. Were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say one last thing, Isaac. What about your group up front? I mean, I was at your practice in the summer, and I know you don't have a lot of depth. What do you have, 28 or 29 guys on the roster?
Yeah.
But your linemen, those guys seem like they're a pretty cohesive group. How happy are you with those guys and having those guys to block for you?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. They're first of all, they're ginormous. Awesome. So, yeah, they work real hard. Coach Lance and Coach Gibbs do a good job with them. And yeah, it's just their mentality is awesome. We have a lot of returning starters. They know their job. They know they're fast. So yeah, it's awesome running behind them.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Isaac, thanks so much for joining us. And, good luck on Friday and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
And now, Isaac, the good news is I'm going to be at your game on Friday against Western Wayne. So one of two things: don't say anything about the Seahawks, and certainly don't bring up Tom Brady.
All right. I'll try.
All right. Thanks, Isaac.
Yeah,
Good luck,
thanks for having
everybody.
me.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. That was Isaac Ryon, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week out of Lackawanna Trail. Joby, obviously, like I had mentioned, he's a very, very solid wrestler as well. So I've got to see him wrestle and also on the football field. Great kid and, a great talent.
Joe, one of the things when you see Isaac Ryon at a high school football game and you're not necessarily familiar with his work, okay, you're going to take a look at him in a uniform and probably think he's not going to see much time.
Right.
He's only about 5'7", 5'8", maybe
Right.
tops wearing his spikes. And he's a strapped 180 pounds, okay? Really put a lot of good time in the weight room. But I will say, and he didn't really give it as much credit as I think it probably warrants, but his background in wrestling really comes to the forefront when he carries the football, Joe. He breaks a lot of tackles.
That's true.
For a guy who you would think, if you're watching him on the field, that wouldn't be in his repertoire. You would think he's more of a speed guy who just outruns you to the corners or whatever. But he's a physical football player in that wing T offense that Coach Steve Jervis loves at Lackawanna Trail. And again, one of the things, Joe, I've covered him since he was a freshman. I know he played it off, but he's a freshman.
Yeah.
With ice water in his veins. It was the second overtime, I believe. If you remember back when that happened, Joe, Max Kimmel blocked 2 game-winning field goal attempts from Old Forge.
Yeah, that's right.
Team, and Isaac came through. May have only been one overtime, but whatever it was, Isaac came through with the game winner. And he is just, playing behind Lucas Gumbel, learning from Max Kimmel. He just has developed into this really confident and game-breaking football player, a guy who you had the opportunity to enjoy playing against Muncie. Joe, he could have run for 400 yards that night.
Joby, I was just going to say that. I mean, I forget what his actual totals were, but my gosh, it was in the 200s, and that was as disappointing as that ended up being, obviously for Lackawanna Trail. That was a crazy game, really fun to watch, and that Lackawanna Trail offense, obviously led by Isaac Ryon, really, really excelled. And, obviously the loss for them, or at least one of the losses that we didn't talk about, was Demetrius Douglas, who graduated. But, this team is really, really good. As you said, it's all about execution with this trail team. I mean, they have a great coaching staff, and yeah, I mean, they're just going to keep getting better and better, and we'll see what happens very, very early in the season right now, Joby. So I don't want to say anything, but this is a team that's usually fighting for district titles and trying to make a state run.
Joe, you have to remember, sometimes we forget when Lackawanna Trail plays a team like Tunkhannock, that Lackawanna Trail is a Class 1A program, Tunkhannock is a Class 3A program, and it's, there's a big gap there. Okay,
right.
In enrollment size, okay? And Lackawanna Trail's got to play Western Wayne, which is a Class 3A program this week.
Right.
The following week, they're going to play Berwick, Class 3A program. So Lackawanna Trail is testing itself for the second year in a row. Again, this is the second year of a 2-year cycle for the scheduling. It will hopefully pay dividends for them in the long run and what their ultimate goal is. But I will tell you, this team practices hard. They had a great offseason. But they have the same concerns a lot of small schools have. They're very thin in terms of roster depth. Okay, so they've got to stay healthy. Isaac's a tremendous player. Tyler Jervis, the quarterback's a seasoned veteran now, and he does have a huge offensive line. If those kids can stay healthy and gain confidence every week, Trail could have a real special year.
Absolutely. Like you were alluding to, they did have some key injuries at the end of last season.
Yes.
So I just looked it up Joby, I'm sorry, I undersold it. He had 305 yards in that game against Muncie. 305.
Yeah, he had a good night.
Crazy. But anyway, so congratulations to Isaac again on the Athlete of the Week. And Joey, we had some other football games.
Well, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit because you saw the Riverside Dunmore game that Riverside came away with the victory with the Santino D'Amico, our all-region kicker from last year, booting the game winner in overtime. And, I expected that to be a very competitive game because I think that they're two really quality teams coming into this year. And, they're going to be heard from throughout the course of the year as well. Both of them played in the District 2 final for Class 2A final for the last 2 seasons. So they know what each other's game plans are going to be when they play each other. But, hey, that's a heck of a way to start the season for your fall sports coverage, Joe.
Yeah, you're not kidding, Joby. It was a crazy game, obviously going right to overtime. And, it was, I don't know. It was a weird game because as you know, and it happened everywhere in week one that, it started, all the players started cramping by the third quarter. It was every play it would have to be stopped because, players were cramping. So, the first half, it's Dunmore absolutely dominates the time of possession. First opening drive, they score a touchdown. It lasts about 8.5 minutes. And then 15 seconds later, Braden Rose scores a touchdown on the kickoff return. And then it goes back to Dunmore. And it was just, it's crazy, but it was really 2 plays for Riverside that kept them in this game. Otherwise, it was absolutely dominated by Dunmore in the first half. Jared Jackson catching a pop pass from Braden Rose, running for a 46-yard touchdown. And let me tell you, for Dunmore, Weston Ianoni's debut was fantastic. He was really, really slowed by cramps in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, really in the second half. But he had this run, Joby, where he ran up the middle, went to the sideline, spun off a defender, bowled over a defender, and then leaped into the end zone. It'll be one of the best runs I'll see all year, and I get it in week one. So it's 14-14, and again, the game just absolutely stalls in the third quarter. Neither team's able to score, but there were some really great defensive plays. I want to shout out Marcus Nagongo. He had he had a big sack of Dunmore to pin Dunmore late in the fourth quarter on a punt. Of course, Tavion Branch just burst through the line and was kind of able to push Dunmore back, about 6 yards. Madden Sandley came up with a fumble, was able to strip a Dunmore player. And again, Marcus Nagongo jumped on that ball. So there were some really nice defensive plays. Also, is it Nijai Scott Holt? I definitely butchered that name, but he had a really nice game defensively for Riverside. Also for Dunmore, Eli Doherty had a few nice plays, 1 or 2 sacks on the defensive side, but second half ends up stalling. It goes to overtime, and it looks like Dunmore's going to go in. And Joby, I'm going to be honest with you. It had been a while since I'd covered an overtime game. I wasn't sure of the rules, I have to admit. But, I was just curious where they started from, basically. I knew it was a back and forth. Each team gets possession, but so they start from the 10 and they try to score. And, Brandon Mecca gets 8 yards on the first play. And, you're thinking Dunmore's going in for a score. And then all of a sudden there's a fumble. and Tyler Grill's able to recover it. I couldn't tell who knocked it loose, but
I'm getting a report, Joe, that it was Braden Rose.
was it? Okay, good. I'm glad someone knows now. But so great play by him. And I must mention, so basically, as you said, Santino D'Amico, he, all region kicker, he had an opportunity on a 38-yard field goal in regulation to end the game, essentially. And he missed it. He missed it left. He definitely had the leg. That would have been good from like 50, but
he doesn't miss too many, Joe.
No, exactly. So, he's able to come in overtime, knock home the field goal, and give Riverside their third straight victory over rival Dunmore. Yeah, Joby, it was, I was very happy because it was a very entertaining game, overtime game. And, I guess the thing I'd come away with is if they face each other again, it'll be very exciting because both teams will be much better. It looks like Riverside, and actually Coach Harry Armstrong said this himself, they're still trying to find an identity offensively, as I believe they only had 97 yards of offense the whole game, and Dunmore had almost 300 and lost. So I thought Dunmore played really well, but still, it's the score that matters, and Riverside made the plays to get the job done, Joby.
Joe, I always tell you this, they take score for a reason.
Exactly.
And to those who may not be believers, okay, that 80-yard kickoff return, while it doesn't go into the total yardage,
that's true.
They still count those.
That is true.
When they go in the end zone. When they go in the end zone.
Absolutely.
That's still 6 points, okay? So, listen, that's a great way to start, and I expect big things from both of those teams throughout the course of the season for sure, and they're going to be involved in what's going to be a very interesting District 2 Class 2A playoff chase moving forward for the rest of the season. And, Joe, that's an interesting thing, is I was monitoring you on X because I was interested in how things were going at the Dunmore Riverside game while I was watching a classic throwback game from 1986 between Valley View and Scranton Prep. And Joe, these two teams just, they walloped each other from the start of the game to the end of the game. I'm telling you, it definitely took me, I felt like I was in the DeLorean. I went back to the future. It was incredible to watch. I mean, it was played in a phone booth, as I've often said, that when you're going to be in a game against a team like Scranton Prep, and you kind of know what the kind of style that team wants to play, and certainly that playbook got reduced a little bit when Will McPartland could not play, which really came as no surprise to a lot of people who understand that he's still trying to recover 100% from a torn ACL he suffered during last state playoffs. But the physicality that both teams brought to this game, Joe, we go into these things knowing that there is a little bit of tension between Scranton Prep and Valley View for a lot of reasons, some that we don't want to get into here on the podcast, but there are some social media things involved with all that. And there are quite a few kids from the Valley View School District who go to Scranton Prep. Okay, so there is that tie there. But it really was an intense football game. One like that I haven't seen in a very long time in the Lackawanna Football Conference. I've seen it at the state level. Okay, we've seen, that type of physicality and an intense play between two pretty equal teams when you get into the state playoffs. But I haven't seen it a lot in the Lackawanna Football Conference head to head, certainly not in week one.
Sure.
And I will tell you, those types of games have lasting effects, Joe.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
So, I think both teams came out of there thankful that they probably played on Friday and that they had a couple of days to recover. Okay, because it was that physical a war. But what Scranton Prep came out, even without Will McPartland at the starting quarterback position. Owen Jeffers, a young player as a sophomore, took over that starting role. We kind of expected Prep to run between the tackles with Anthony Prince, the former standout from Carbondale area when he was a freshman. And, he did a good job of running in between the tackles. And it was just a matter of not punching the ball in over the goal line. I think you had a similar situation with Dunmore and Riverside.
Yeah.
And, one of the Scranton Prep's only touchdown came on what was a botched punt snap by Valley View. It sailed over the punter's head. And Braden Laffey eventually, in his haste to try to recover the bad snap, he kind of got hit and led to a Mackey line fumble recovery in the end zone. And then another drive where Scranton Prep kind of got itself into scoring position. Valley View's defense once again rose to the occasion, made a couple of big plays. Brady Bachman had a tackle for a loss, and Jeffrey Wasilchak had a tackle for no gain, and led to a field goal for Scranton Prep. And, Valley View kind of played very conservative, ran the football with sophomore running back Tyler Mushall, who ran with a lot of power and aggressiveness, and Jeffrey Wasilchak had a couple of angry runs in there, and and it was Mushall broke a 4th and 1 play for a 18-yard touchdown, and that gave them the lead at 14-10. And then Valley View's defense kept rising to the occasion, and the Cougars start the season with a very hard fought. I'm telling you, every player who was involved in that game left exhausted. There's no two ways about that. So, and Joe, listen, as I say, it has lingering effects. Both teams come back this week in week 2 with extreme challenges ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
Valley View, which obviously is going to be much happier coming away with a win. The Cougars will be hitting the road playing against a Crestwood team that's going to be looking for its first win after a tough loss against Wyoming area, an emotional loss there to a rival. And Scranton Prep, we talked last year, Joe, about that upgraded schedule the Cavaliers had, being a private school here in Northeast Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, the Cavaliers have to play Loyola Blakefield from Maryland, which is ranked, I think, 6th or 7th in the state for Maryland. So, they're going to have to recover quickly and get themselves straightened out and correct. But you mentioned it last week, Joe. Coaches always kind of fall on this. The best improvements of a season come between week 1 and week 2. Okay. So we'll see where both of these two teams stand after what was a very physical football game on Friday night.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm sure that, Valley View was ready to play that game, considering, what happened at the start of last season against Scranton Prep. So,
yeah, I brought that up to Isaac Ryon. Of course, it's going to be a factor for Lackawanna Trail, I think, this week. Certainly the guys who played in that game against Western Wayne. And being a former player myself, I had used a loss from the previous season as motivation. And it has to be. It's just the nature of the game.
Sure.
But these are two different teams, okay? I mean, Valley View graduated 29 seniors.
Right.
Scranton Prep lost, 3 all-region starters.
Yep.
4 all-region starters from last year, and the 5th, Will McPartland couldn't play. So the identities of these two teams, how Harry Armstrong kind of mentioned to you in the post game that he's looking for an identity for his offense there. Remember, that offense was scoring 50 points a game last year.
Right.
So, but he lost a lot of the playmakers, okay, from that group. So you do have to fight. It is a different team. And this is year, but those things do play a factor into it. And I do believe Valley View was motivated to, at the very least, play better in that game against Scranton Prep. And obviously it did by coming away with the win.
Absolutely. And Joby, before we move on to other things, I did want to mention, I found it very interesting when Dunmore took the field. The entire team is wearing the Guardian caps to protect from head injuries, which some NFL players are doing. They have the option. I just want to say I know that Coach Kevin McHale told me that the kids didn't want to do it, and I get it. I wouldn't want to do it either, but I just think, good for them, good for the district. Again, Coach McHale told me that they entered last season with 3 or 4 concussions. Then they started this season wearing the Guardian caps, and they had none entering game one. So it's, it's good for the district. Everyone should make their own decisions on what they want to do. But I know that you've been doing this way longer than me, and you played the game itself, Joby. And I've seen some brutal hits, even at the high school level. So good for them taking a step to, for protection. Again, make your own decisions as a team, as a district, whatever. But I kind of want to applaud Dunmore for taking a step toward player safety.
Joe, I'm always up for player safety. I'd like a little bit more evidence that those caps do help. But I made a mention of this in the summer that, a couple of years ago when this became fashionable to start trying to prevent, I shouldn't say prevent because you're not going to be able to prevent concussions.
No, never.
At least try to stem the tide of the wave we were on with this influx of concussions. But a lot of the teams are wearing the caps during practice, which I certainly see why there is a little bit more steady flow of contact, high impact contact in a practice. But again, I think the phrase there that you perfectly said was, to each his own, make their own decisions.
Right.
With the Guardian caps. If Dunmore made the decision as a school district, this is the way that it wants to be able to protect its players, then so be it. I'm sure next year, maybe if that's the course of action that they'll want to take, they'll probably see and investigate into getting the caps that look more like the helmets, and it won't stand out as much. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
There's some designs out there where you can get them to simulate your helmet. So, yeah, I mean, again, when I went around the camps this summer, Joe, I made a very good observation that a lot of the teams are wearing them. So if in fact there is evidence that it curtails the concussions, keep moving forward for player safety. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, Joby, and say that it looks real fashionable.
Well, Joe, and everybody knows you are the fashion point of Northeast Pennsylvania.
That's right. Maybe I should start a column.
I'm not much about the fashion police. I just do think that football players don't like to look silly.
Right.
I don't think that they looked silly.
No,
I think that,
no, actually, yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think, and of course they're willing to wear them. And again, if it's a situation where it offers them a little bit of security and it encourages more players to come out for football, so be it.
Absolutely. And Joby, I was also, speaking of, making them look like the helmets, Coach McHale assured me that they will have the right colors this time around for week 2, because they wore blue and.
I think there was no intention early on to wear them in a game.
Right. They had made the decision on Wednesday. You're right. Exactly. So they were, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I found it pretty interesting. Obviously you had made the observations, but that was the first time I saw an entire team wear them on game day. So Joby, I don't know if there's any other games that you really want to touch on. I want to mention, and you had a notebook on this, and this game was covered by our former colleague and friend Herb Smith. The West Scranton snapped its 12-game losing streak, getting a victory over Forge 20-7. Obviously, Joby, this was coming. I like Jake Manetti a lot, and you could just see the culture building, and this is just a great start to their season.
So here's the situation, Joe. West Scranton, when I was growing up, of course, was a great football tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Abington Heights head football coach Joe Reps just played in that system. Some really talented physical football players. Mark Spindler, National Defensive Player of the Year when I was in high school. You can go all the way back to the years of Cosmo Iacovazzi. West Scranton defined toughness.
Yeah.
Okay. And West Scranton also had some really dynamic playmakers. We talked about that quarter century team we named. You had Hubie Graham, who was one of the best tight ends to come out of this area for any era. His dad was a physical football player back in the day. You had Eric Shrive, you had, of course, Matt McGloin, who, went on to play in the National Football League.
Yep.
And West Scranton has a history of sending players to the NFL. Bill Ferrario was one. Fred DeRiggi was another. These West Scranton players, the history is just phenomenal with this program, and it has fallen on some hard times. Let's call it, football. Football is a sport that, it pulls no punches.
No.
You can kind of gloss over some things in other sports, and, basketball and baseball, they play a higher quantity of games. It's such a short season of 10 weeks. And if you kind of fall into a little bit of a rut, this is the second time that Jake Manetti's had to try to end a long losing streak for the West Scranton Pro. I believe it was 19 games the last time around. And so, Joe, the part of the equation there is it's very difficult to build that, as I said in the notebook, confidence. And you have to get kids excited about football. Takes a great deal of commitment, right, both in the season and in the off season. And part of that commitment has very little to do with football. You have to build your strength by lifting weights. You have to run and condition your body by doing sprints, by doing miles, by running up hills. You've all seen the videos of Jerry Rice, or now, you see Derrick Henry doing his workouts on these very steep inclines. And you look at the physical bodies on these college and professional football players, and you can just see the dedication that they have to put in. That's a hard thing to develop when every time you go out there to play a game, you get beat. Okay. And so Jake and his staff have done a real good job. First and foremost, the West Scranton football team is heavily involved in the community. They volunteer at a lot of these things, these functions, these church picnics, community cleanups. They go to the soup kitchen. He's done a great job in building that part of the program. Now he wants those kids to see some results. And he was encouraged by what he saw out of this group in the off season, in the workouts and the 7-on-7s. Now, he had a little bit of trouble early on in the summer practices. He wanted to make sure he got bodies there, and, he had to really kind of work at getting them there, but he was encouraged by what he saw out of this group. And he now has kind of turned that junior high program into part of the varsity program, which is a big step in the right direction as well. His coaches work hard, and the best thing that you can do for a program that's trying to build is have some success. And so to start the season with a big victory is a huge step for Jake Manetti and the West Scranton program. Now, what does it mean down the line? I don't know, but at least now they didn't just play well in week one. They came away with a win.
Right. And that's the first step. That's it. So, Joby, I'm going to just read through some scores. You just stop me if you want to talk about any of these games. Obviously, you were intently following on Saturday. Joby, I think you worked 72 straight hours this weekend. But Delaware Valley lost to McKeesport 51-24. Obviously, that's a part of their difficult schedule to start the year that they always build into the season. Holy Cross Crusaders, Joby, 32-6 over Montrose.
Yep.
We look to futures bright.
Joe.
Yep. Obviously, Holmesdale beating East Stroudsburg North.
Congratulations to Lackawanna. His first victory there as the coach at Holmesdale.
Yep, exactly. Wallenpaupack lost to Stroudsburg 28-7. Abington Heights got a win over East Stroudsburg South. Boy, Joby, our teams played every Stroudsburg possible this week.
Yeah, Joe, and listen, that going back to one of your earlier thoughts about that game meaning a lot, because last year Abington Heights ended up winning the District 2 Class 5A championship, has to replace all of its linemen, from that team, offensively and defensively. And, East Stroudsburg South handed Abington Heights a tough loss in week one last year.
Right.
And this year, I think the big thing about that win for Abington Heights was it's on the road, number one. And even with the inexperience up front, they were able to have a guy, Jay Nanglin, to run for more than 100 yards. And Nick Bradley, of course, we know what he brings to the table. He threw for more than 100 yards. So
Yep.
real encouraging signs there for Abington Heights with a week 1 victory on the road at East Stroudsburg South.
Absolutely, Joby. Western Wayne beat Susquehanna 32-0. Joby Lakeland beat Carbondale 52-14. I thought
This week's Game Face feature is going to be on a couple of guys from Lakeland, and this program, if you pick up a copy of the Times-Tribune tomorrow, you'll see Lakeland returns to the Times-Tribune High School football top 10 poll. I won't tell you where. But what's surprising, Joe, is this is a program that, if you can remember back, this is the first time now that Lakeland is in the top 10 ranked since it finished the 2022 season as our number 1 team.
Wow.
So it's a program that's gone through a couple of tough rebuilding years after that.
Absolutely.
That terrific season that they had in 22. And, it is only week 1.
Right.
So there's still a lot of work to be done. But Lakeland's in another is a situation similar to Lackawanna Trail. Not a real deep roster. Still playing a lot of sophomores, which, that tends to be a recipe for disaster later on in the year because sophomores physically aren't necessarily ready for that.
Right.
But this is a good group at Lakeland, so we'll see how it plays out.
Absolutely. Pocono Mountain West beat Scranton 38-19. North Pocono, our number 1 team, got off to obviously a fast start against Nanticoke area, 56-0.
Yowza.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, look, Joe, I'm going to, we had the great story on the Zimmerman brothers. We kind of teased it a little bit last week in Game Face. And my heart goes out to the entire family and,
oh, God, yeah.
And the mom and sister and everything. But what a great story for them to start off the year so having such a great game. And, a couple of years ago, you never want to look too far ahead. You always want to play in the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think Coach Greg Dolan and his staff there at North Pocono were always pretty excited about this senior class at North Pocono.
Yeah. And
it's a group that got off to a pretty good start last year, and then the injury bug hit. And as we pointed out a couple of times here, if you're battling injuries, and you are going to battle injuries in football, Joe, it's just the nature of the sport. So you have to plan on that. And they just weren't able to overcome that adversity last year. And then when they were a little bit more healthy at the end of the year, not 100% healthy, but a little bit more, Pocono gave Scranton Prep a heck of a game in week 10, the regular season, and then was rewarded by playing an Eastern Conference game where it absolutely hammered Hamburg.
Yep.
And that kind of helps build confidence. It helps, encourage the kids to get into the weight room and do all those off-season things I talked about. And, I just think this could be a really good year. But now, hey, Joe, right out of the chute, you perform big, you have a great game, 56-0 against Nanticoke area. And now waiting here for you in week 2 is a road game at Pittston area, which got off to a terrific start as well with an impressive 46-9 win over Mid-Valley in Coach Paul Russick's return to his alma mater.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, that's essentially your week 1 in football. Obviously, we already mentioned that Lackawanna Trail beat Tunkhannock 35-21.
Joe, I also want to mention, you touched a little bit on Delaware Valley. I had to monitor that online. I listened to the broadcast and took some notes. We often talk about the daunting schedule that Delaware Valley puts together in the early part of the season. I did a nice story on it for Saturday as part of the preview. And the one quote that I thought was very interesting from Coach Keith Olsemer was in describing Keemon Spell is that he's the best back that they have prepared for in all of these games that they kind of go on the road. They played a bunch of they played a team from California. They played a team, from all over the country, right? And Massachusetts, they played a team. And in addition, Delaware Valley played against Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So it's high praise, Keith Olsemer, to say how talented Keemon Spell is. Now, he's only a junior.
Right.
So he returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. His first carry went for a touchdown. His third carry went for a touchdown. I mean, he's just an incredible football player. And Delaware Valley, to its credit, I know it says 51-24 when all was said and done. But in listening to the game, Delaware Valley fought and battled. And at one point, I believe, and Joe, again, I have so many numbers going through my head this week.
Yeah.
But they had a chance to get within 34-24 to start the second half, had driven down to the 9-yard line and failed on a 4th and 3. They ended up being 4th and 2.5.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, listen, if you score there, it's 34-24 and you're within 10, okay?
Right.
But you didn't score, it's 34-17, and the next thing you know, in the blink of an eye, Spell's going in for another touchdown. So it was that kind of situation where as long as Spell wasn't on the field, Delaware Valley was hanging in there.
Right. Absolutely, Joby. And yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason they do this to, get.
I don't know if they do it for the reason to have a guy score.
That's a good point, Joby.
They certainly do it for the competition level.
Right. Exactly. Quickly, I want to mention one of the people we considered for Athlete of the Week this week was Chase Rosenkrantz, Lakeland, who shot 3 under 30 at Scott Green's twice last week. That's very impressive, having played that course myself, as we had mentioned, last week. He also had 2 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown in the win over Carbondale area. So, Joby, is there anything you want to talk about football wise, any of the games coming up for week 2 or anything well, you already teased your game face. So is there any game that you want to discuss here in week 2?
I don't want to get too much into it, Bill, but I really think that North Pocono-Pittston area game is going to tell us a lot about what we're going to have moving forward here in the regular season. I'm really, and I've mentioned it a couple of times here, I'm really interested to see how Scranton Prep and Delaware Valley bounce back against really tough opponents here in week 2.
Right. Absolutely.
Because, again, it is a long season, Joe. And, you front-loaded this schedule because they play in week 4. Scranton Prep and Delaware Valley. So it'll be really interesting to see how they bounce back. But just shifting gears quickly, Joe, I had an opportunity, and I want to thank Mid-Valley Girls Volleyball coach Nick Parlanti for hosting the Lackawanna League Girls Volleyball Media Day on Saturday rather, at 5:00. And, it was really a great opportunity for those kids to kind of be in the spotlight a little bit here and share some of the spotlight with the high school football season. Now, their girls volleyball season begins on Thursday this week. We'll have a preview coming out of that media day running in the Times-Tribune this week. But it was great to see how excited all the players are. Remember, Joe, we had a great season last year coming out of the Lackawanna League. North Pocono was undefeated as the champion. Mountain View won the Class 1A district championship and won a first-round match in the state tournament as well. So a lot of excited kids and some young programs, too. Remember, Valley View, Lakeland, Mid-Valley. These are programs just starting up and getting their feet underneath them. Scranton, West Scranton. And these kids now have had a couple of years to get ready. And it was nice to just kind of hang out with them and chat with some of the players and get ready for the girls' volleyball season that's on tap this week.
Absolutely, Joby. And to piggyback off that, I've been working on some Lackawanna League soccer previews, boys and girls, the Lackawanna League season starts.
Oh, we're going to see you out on the pitch?
I'm going to be out on the pitch, Joby. You know it.
How many Ted Lasso references are you going to have?
All of them. I should have a running count all season. But yeah, we're going to have CS. I believe the girls start next Wednesday, September 3rd, and the boys, I believe, start next Tuesday, September 2nd. So
Labor Day weekend coming up, Joe.
That's right. So, me and Tom Fox will be rocking your soccer coverage this year. I'm very, very excited for that. And so, yeah, you've got that to look forward to at some point.
Oh, you should do well with that. That sport is right up your alley.
Oh, yeah. I like soccer. So, but But yeah, other than that, I think we could probably cut it there. Joby, be sure to go to the website, the times-tribune.com/sports. Be sure to follow Joby. A lot of traffic on the Facebook page.
Good week. We've had a good week.
Absolutely. So keep following Joby Fawcett, the Times-Tribune, his Times-Tribune page, Times-Tribune Sports on Instagram and Facebook, and follow us on X at SportsTT for updates from game scores and other things as well. But for now, Joby, we made it to the end of Season 2, Episode 3. Again, I want to thank Isaac Ryon for joining us, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. You could see more from him. His Athlete of the Week interview will be in Tuesday's paper. We're recording this Monday night, so you can also get that online. So we got plenty going on here, but until next week, we will leave you. And one person I always forget to thank, you, Joby.
No, thank you for having me, Joy. I appreciate you giving me a little bit of a break from all the writing I've been doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, now you got to get back to work. So.
Yeah.